14 hours. The wind was too quiet for a night like that. Dust rises easily out here on the edge of County Line Road, but tonight it felt deliberate, as if someone had stirred it on purpose. Leah Ryder had finished shutting the barn doors when the dogs started growling. Not barking, just that low, warning rumble. The kind that means someone's already here. She reached for the rifle mounted by the door, but before her hand touched it, a spotlight washed over the ranch. A black pickup rolled up to the gate, and 3 men stepped out. They wore cheap uniforms with HOA code enforcement stitched to the chest, but their eyes gave them away. People enforcing lawn height rules don't stare at a barn like it's holding bodies. They said they were responding to a violation notice. Leah didn't recall ever signing up for any HOA. One of them spoke with a slow, chemical calm. This inspection goes easier when no one asks questions. Another held a scanner, waving it across the gate like he was checking for lifeforms. Leah saw the bulge under his jacket, sidearm, no safety on. She remained still. Hesitation can look like surrender when it needs to. She only spoke when the leader tried to unlatch her gate. You step onto my land without a warrant, I shoot without hesitation. Her voice was calm, even though her pulse was not. They ignored her. The scanner began to beep, soft, rapid. The man smirked like he found what they were really looking for. It wasn't about zoning laws. And then came the worst sign, her phone lost signal entirely. No service. No emergency call. No message out. The power followed seconds later, cutting across the whole ranch with a loud thunk. Only the barn lantern stayed lit. The dogs backed away. Leah knew then, they weren't after property. Someone wanted her. Just as the men started toward the barn, lights flashed from the far road, a pair of headlights cutting through the dark like a blade. Not speeding, but moving with purpose. Leah recognized the engine before she saw the car. Sheriff Colt Hawkins' patrol truck. Her cousin, but not by blood. More by past, by history, by something unspoken. She never fully understood why he checked on her so often, but she always knew he would. His tires stopped hard over the gravel. Door slammed. Gun drawn. The men raised fake badges, but Colt didn't even glance at them. You aren't HOA, he said flatly. You're not even from this county. His voice had that tone reserved for criminals he intended to remember personally. They tensed. Their hands hovered near their jackets. Leah watched Colt advance, slow, steady, daring them. The leader narrowed his eyes. This isn't over, Sheriff. Colt's answer was just 3 words, it already is. Backup was called. This time, Leah's phone signal returned instantly. Too instantly. Someone had suppressed it, then released it when help arrived. As the men were ordered to the ground, Colt looked at Leah, not like a victim, not like family. Something darker. Something protective. Almost possessive. She realized then, he didn't just arrive because he was sheriff. He arrived because the men were looking for something precious. The barn smelled of hay and gun oil. Colt kept the suspects lined against the wall while the deputies cuffed them, but Leah caught something in the way the third man looked at her. He didn't look scared. He looked triumphant. Like he already knew how tonight would end. She wrapped her arms around herself as if suddenly cold, though the air was still warm from the summer night. Colt's voice was steady, authoritative, but she had heard this tone before. It was the voice he used when he wasn't sure who he could trust. Not even himself. One of the deputies opened the lead suspect's file on his tablet. No ID. No prints. No state record. Leah heard the deputy mutter, "They're ghosts." But ghosts don't bleed, and Colt had managed to bruise one's jaw already. Leah moved closer to Colt, trying to read his cues like she used to years ago. Before he became sheriff. Before the secret changed everything. He didn't look at her when he spoke, but she noticed his jaw tighten. Every minute passed like something was closing in, a silent countdown no one could see but everyone could feel. The leader of the fake HOA slowly lifted his head and stared at Leah. "Tell him," he said softly, "tell him you don't belong to him." Colt stepped forward before Leah could react, shoving the man back against the wall with a forearm to his throat. The suspect didn't fight back. He only turned his head, eyes still on her. "He never told you." "Figures." Colt slammed him again. "You don't say another," the man laughed. It was quiet but sharp. "The sheriff erased you from a file that never officially existed. Your name was linked to our business. A shipment. A case that died the moment your cousin," he spat the word like venom, "destroyed the evidence." Leah's blood felt like ice. Colt stopped moving. She saw something flicker across his face, regret, maybe fear. But not for himself. For her. He glanced in her direction for only a fraction of a second, but it was enough. She stepped back. Colt turned to her, voice low. "Leah, one word." But there were 100 more unsaid behind it. The suspect leaned forward in the deputy's grip. "Didn't you ever wonder why this ranch stays protected? Why no one touches it?" He smirked. "He traded sins to keep you clean." Leah couldn't breathe. All the nights Colt warned her to stay out of trouble, now they sounded different. They sounded like guilt. Like love with a price. She remembered how he'd watch every stranger who approached her with suspicion. How he'd patrol her property like a lonely knight with something to atone for. "So, Sheriff," the suspect whispered, "is she worth what you did?" Colt could have hit him. He didn't. Instead, he holstered his weapon. And looked at Leah like he was finally ready to accept judgment. She didn't speak. Couldn't. The barn felt like a courtroom and she was caught between verdicts. The deputies led the men away, but the damage had already been done. Something changed in the air between them, something fragile, something forbidden. Colt approached slowly. Not as law. Not as blood. But as a man who had saved her life long before she ever knew it needed saving. She looked into his eyes. And for the first time, she saw what he'd been hiding all these years. Not just a secret that it was after midnight when the sirens faded and the ranch returned to its silence. The deputies drove the suspects to the county jail, but Colt stayed behind. Leah leaned against the barn door, arms folded, eyes cast toward the gravel driveway where the last cruiser had disappeared. The sky above them was open and starless, stretching like something unsolved. Questions ran circles in her head, how deep his secrets went, how many times he had stood between her and danger without her even knowing. She could still hear the suspect's voice, "He traded sins to keep you clean." It lingered like smoke in her lungs. Colt approached her slowly, like someone walking into a memory they weren't sure they were welcome in. He removed his hat and rested it against his leg. No badge, no title, just Colt. Just the man she used to trust before trust became complicated. She wanted to look at him and demand answers. She also wanted to run to him and feel safe. Instead, her voice came out quiet. "How many nights did you protect me without telling me why?" His eyes were tired. Not from the case, not from the suspects, but from the weight of finally being seen. "Every night," he answered. "Because every night someone wanted something from you. Information. Access. Leverage. Even before you knew anything, you were valuable to them." She shook her head. "I don't understand. They said my name was in some file. I never dealt with criminals." Colt nodded. "That's the thing. Your father did, years before you were old enough to realize. He got tangled in something. You were the leverage. They watched you. Until I erased your name. There it was, the confession. And yet, her heartbeat didn't fear him. It just hurt for him. Because she could finally see the cost written in his eyes. She stepped closer. He didn't move away. "You did all that, for me?" Colt looked away, then back at her. The answer was in the silence before he spoke. "I did worse than that. I broke my oath for you. I crossed a line. A line I can't uncross." His voice softened. "But I would cross it again." The words landed heavy between them. Not sweet. Not romantic. Just true. And somehow, that was stronger than any love confession she had ever imagined. Leah hesitated, and then she reached out, placing her hand against his chest. His heart was steady. But her own raced like it was trying to catch up to something it had always known but never accepted. "So, what now?" she asked. Colt took her hand gently, holding it like something he had been waiting years to do. "Now," he said, "we prepare." They weren't working alone. They belonged to something bigger. A syndicate. They call themselves the Roses of Crimson County. Leah's breath caught. A name like that didn't belong to petty criminals. It sounded like legacy. Like war. Colt glanced toward the horizon as if danger might already be on its way. "They have a list," he continued. "People they want. People they need." Leah felt fear crawling in her chest. "And I'm still on it?" Colt's grip tightened, protective. "Not just you," he said. "We both are." Their eyes locked. The night was colder now, but she wasn't alone anymore. Whatever came next, she would face it with him. And somewhere, in that dark stillness, love finally stepped out of hiding. Not soft. Not safe. But ready.